Hello, hello.
Do you want to talk first or do you want me to talk first?
I think we're live. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I don't know where you are, but where we are, it is raining cats and dogs. So hopefully we're going to have a great broadcast tonight. We're not going to have any crazy power outages. But I'm Barry Baumgardner, and I'm here with my husband and business partner, Blue Melnick.
Hi there. I'm Blue Melnick.
And we are going to be talking about how virtual events outperform in-person events, live events. Okay. Before we do, can we address the haters? Can we address the
No. Let's not address the haters.
No?
First, before we get started, you know who I actually think deserves to be addressed because, wow, that was awesome?
Jeff Walker.
Christian Eli.
Oh, so Christian, our amazing videographer who also edited the clips that you just saw from our most recent virtual event with Jeff Walker, previously PLF Live in person year after year after year after year. This year, PLF Live virtual this year, which is a hint, it's a spoiler alert about how virtual events are outperforming live. If you're one of the people who posted, of course they are, of course virtual events are outperforming live because there are no live events. You're right. You are right about that, especially right now at this moment in time. But it's a good lead and it got you here. So let us tell you what we really meant. What we really meant is that virtual events are outperforming their in-person counterparts. So we now have 3 virtual events that we've been running for years with our clients that are normally in person, that due to COVID, we had to turn into virtual events in the last 60 days. And each of them is outperforming their previous in-person counterparts. So that's super exciting news for you. It means the pivot is alive and well and it's working. And it also means for all of you out there who are saying, what do you mean? Don't be hating on live events. Live events matter. Live events are important. Of course they are. And live events are not dead. We love live events. We live, love, and leverage live events every day. For the last 16 years at Sage, it has been our bread and butter. Blue and me and our team produce 30 in-person live events a year in a normal year. This year, not so much. It's been a massive, drastic change due to COVID. But the good news is the pivot that we were forced into, the pivot that our clients were forced into, is working really well. And we're going to talk about why that's really good news for you. Live events are not dead. Virtual events are working. And we're going to talk about why that's really good news, whether your dream is to do an in-person event or whether you're thinking about pivoting to a virtual event or whether you're undecided. We've got some good news for you, and we're going to be sharing it with you tonight.
For sure. And for those of you just joining us, because I forgot to turn on the video player on our website.
No wonder you're so busy.
Yeah, that just goes to show that we are an event planning company first.
We run better virtual events than we run webinars.
Absolutely. So, you know what? Actually, speaking of being an event company first, why don't we talk a little bit about how we got to this point from a live event perspective? Because Barry and I own and operate a company called Sage Event Management. And as the name would suggest, we produce live events. And we love live events. In fact, I can't wait for our next live event. I don't know when that's going to be right now, but I'm really excited for when that day comes.
Yeah, you kind of miss this in-person thing. I mean, the rush of energy of, getting on the plane, getting to the hotel, having your pre-con with the hotel, meeting with the client team, seeing the AV production start to roll out, and the event that you've been dreaming of for weeks or months start to finally take shape and be a reality. And then the attendees start to roll in and you're seeing them in the hallway and seeing them at registration. And then, being backstage in the green room and you're, waiting for that moment for the host to go on stage and we're doing the countdown and then the video rolls and the lights go dark. And, it's like a moment, right? We live for those moments. We craft for those moments. We are the kind of people that literally don't mind sacrificing 30 weekends a year to those moments because we love them that much. And that's kind of what our life looks like in a normal world. But for the last 60 days, we've pretty much been grounded with COVID. And it makes, I will say this, I think you have to have a moment of mourning. Like we've done that. My guess is if you love live events like we do, you've done that or you're in the process of doing that. It is sad to not have in-person live events. It's sad for our hosts. It's sad for our audiences. It's sad for our team. It's sad for our client teams. Really, you look forward to it all year. And then all of a sudden, like you're blindsided and a poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
But that's why we think it's such good news that virtual events, while not the same, while not an in-person event, they are working really well. And in some cases, our attendees are loving certain experiences in virtual better than in person. And the results speak for themselves. We're going to be sharing the results with you tonight. But the reality is at this moment in time, virtual events are outperforming their in-person counterparts from the year before or multiple year averages from years before. So let's talk about what that looks like.
Well, actually, do you mind if I know, so listen, I know when we do these free trainings, people hate story, right? You just want us to get to the meat.
We generally get a bunch of chat saying, stop
with the story. Stop with the story for the love.
So you're making me nervous. I feel like we're going to get a bunch of like hate chat.
Yeah, I'm bracing myself for the hate. But at the same time, I
do you mind? Can we just maybe you should ask their permission. Do you mind if we tell you
actually,
a short story?
If you guys don't mind, will you post in the chat? Do you mind if we just, like Barry said, can we share a story?
Can you indulge my husband and let him tell a short story?
So
promise to make it
the fun thing is we'd have to sit here and be quiet for 15 seconds while the stream catches up if we were going to wait for it. So I'm going to start, and if we get a bunch of no story,
we'll beg your forgiveness.
I may stop, maybe not.
Okay, get to it.
So 60 days ago, a little more than 60 days ago, Barry and I were at our last live event. It was March 13th.
March 13th.
And it was a Friday. We had a group of podiatrists, probably about 150 people at a live event. So relatively small, intimate live event. And we get to Miami, and a lot of people saying yes story. Okay, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Yeah, and I have to I want to give a quick preamble. So this was an event in Miami, but 2 days beforehand, we'd been meeting with a client of ours, Sue McLaren in Puerto Rico, and a good friend of ours, Fruch Schroff, and his wife Heidi in Puerto Rico. So we'd flown to Puerto Rico, and then we left Puerto Rico and flew to Miami, and that was like basically from March 10th to March 13th. And on the way to Puerto Rico, and from Puerto Rico on the way to Miami, Blue and I are like, this COVID, it's not a thing. It's not really a thing.
There's so many people in the airport.
The airport is full.
Yeah.
The flights are full. Like, I mean, is it dangerous? Yes. Is it scary? Yeah. It's a little intimidating, but it's not really a thing. We don't really need to be worried about
I've got
this.
my little hand sanitizer with me. You know?
We did at that time. We sure did. And we were like being careful about what we touched.
We somehow managed to buy like the last bottle of hand sanitizer in Merle's Inlet.
We kind of did. And so then we get to Miami.
Well, and March 13th, Trump declares a national emergency.
Yes. During our event.
And our whole world changed.
It's
right?
Like tilt.
As a live event company, as you can imagine, our entire world changed.
I remember being in Puerto Rico and the phone was starting to blow up with rumors that it was going to happen. And we were reassuring all of our clients, like, I know this is just sit
Let's
tight.
Just wait and see what happens.
We got this. And then over 3 days later, we're like, no, this is bad. This is big.
So on the flight home, it was a complete 180 from what we got on the way there. It was almost like we were going through Atlanta Airport from The Walking Dead, just like minus the zombies. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it had gone from a completely full airport from flying from Puerto Rico to Miami with a full flight to flying from Miami home, and the flight had maybe 20 people, and the airport was deserted. And it was eerie. It was really eerie.
In the next 4 days, every single event that we had on the books from March 13th, for at that point it must have been March 16th, through September 1st, either canceled or moved to 2021.
Yeah, and I think 8 canceled, 8 postponed, and 22 renegotiated, all in the span of like 14 days. It was literally like every time you opened your computer, picked up the phone, looked at your phone, it was a text, it was an email, it was a Slack message saying, we think we should cancel, we think we should move.
So for a relatively small company, we have 12 full-time employees. We had some pretty big decisions to make because in a short period of time, we lost a minimum of about $500,000 in revenue.
At least, yeah. That doesn't even include,
Yeah. And, we had to make a decision, which was, do we do what pretty much every other event company or AV provider or even hotels at this point are doing, which is lay off your team, furlough your team, shut your doors. Exactly. And,
we have a brick and mortar office. So, we happen to be sitting in our own studio right now, which is housed in our office.
So we looked at each other and said, what are we going to do? And, we made the decision to move forward rather than close the doors because for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're not the type of people that kind of curl up into a ball and say, mama, right? So instead, we said, how can we figure out how to do this? How can we keep our team employed? How can we keep serving our clients? And just as importantly, how can we keep our clients serving their audience?
Yeah, because think about it. And you guys know this that are watching this. If you are in the business of either hosting events for your clients, meaning you're a third-party event team like we are, or you're the host who puts on these events, you know, like it's not just your revenue, it's all the people that you're going to help.
Just stretching.
Okay. It's all the people that you're going to help. You know, every person that walks through the doors of your ballroom is someone that you're hoping to transform their lives. And if you're making a high ticket offer, selling a coaching program or a mastermind program, you know, whatever it might be, then you know that those people that you're going to spend the next year with, you are going to be changing their lives. So this is no small thing. It's, you know, we call a live event a purpose-driven payday. And that's the way we look at it. There's purpose and there's a payday, right? The purpose is impact. You're having tremendous impact. And then the payday is income. And our hosts are relying on both. I don't think we have any hosts in our books that are like, yeah, all we care about is the money. I mean, they're driven by impact and transformation and legacy, and so are their teams. And so to have that just evaporate essentially, and for many of them, the purpose-driven payday is the foundation of their financial year. It is going to pay for salaries and team and resources for that upcoming year. So no small thing. So what do?
Well,
you pivot.
Yeah. So fast forward, I'm going to short story this one.
60 days later.
60 days later.
Reset. It's almost literally, what day is today?
The 21st.
So it's like
21st?
63
Is it 21st? Let me see.
6:13
p.m. 21st. Yes, 6:13 p.m. on Thursday, the 21st. Yes, this is in fact live. All right. So fast forward.
65 days later.
And I'm here to tell you without hesitation, that's the word I was looking for, without hesitation, that live events are not dead, which is really amazing. Now, they look a little different, right? They definitely look a little different, but we have done 3 live events over the course of the last 6 weeks.
Days.
Yeah, 6 weeks. 45 days, 6 weeks. Yeah. And the really cool thing is that in that period of time, we have our hosts have served more people because their reach is wider.
So more impact, more purpose.
Yeah. They've generated more revenue.
More income.
Yeah. And honestly, we've all had a lot of fun doing it. There's been a lot of experimentation.
Yeah,
lots and lots of experimentation. Not the type of experimentation you did in high school. Different kind of experimentation. You know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what he's talking about. No, I mean, I think it's safe to say that there's more innovation happening right now in the meeting and events industry, the hospitality space, than there has been in decades. Yep. You know, I've been sadly doing this for, sadly or lovely, depending on how you look at it, but over 25 years. It was my very first job when I graduated from college, was helping to run conferences for trade associations. I spent years doing that before then I sold sponsorships, and then I ultimately started my own company 16 years ago. And so I've always been in this space and always loved it. Always loved the rush of putting on a live event, of welcoming the attendees, of seeing speakers on stage, of the thunder of applause, of the rush of adrenaline when there's a stampede to the back of the room, the hugs that you get when you welcome somebody into a coaching program, the rush that you get when you see somebody who joined last year's program on the stage this year, talking about the successes that they had and knowing that you had some small part in that. I love all of that. So it was such good news for us that virtual events could be a thing. They just had to be tweaked a little bit. And so, well, I was just going to say quickly, the way I look at live events is that virtual and in-person are both live events. It's just the medium, the way you're delivering them is different. So there's the live event space, alive and well. In person looks, you know, yeah, we're waiting for that to come back. But in the meantime, virtual is looking great. And so let's talk about, if that's true, what are most people getting wrong?
Well, we're actually...
Before that, you're going to do something. Are you going to tell another story?
No, I'm not going to tell them another story. That's the hook, all right?
Okay.
We are 100% going to try and hook you to stay all the way with us because we have 90 minutes tonight and another 74 left. That's about how much time this takes.
Stay till the end, and we're going to reveal
what most people are getting wrong when it comes to virtual events.
Even some big names, even like the NFL.
For sure.
What most people are getting wrong when they take a look at virtual events. We're going to share that. But first,
Well, let's talk a little bit about who this is for, right? Our client base tends to be speakers, authors, entrepreneurs, small business owners, coaches, consultants, influencers, people who have a message or a skill set that they have mastered that they are sharing with others, right? Jeff Walker, Product Launch Formula, Stu McLaren, Tribe and memberships. Let's see, Lisa Sasevich, Speak to Sell and her amazing process. Ryan Levesque, the Ask Method.
Russell Brunson, funnel hacking.
Exactly. Every single one of them. Every single one of them has a skill set that they are sharing out there, and that they're helping their people, their attendees, do better with, grow their business, or in some cases it's personal development, grow their lives, grow their being. And in most cases, they are using a high ticket offer to allow them to achieve that purpose-driven payday that Barry was referring to. And the cool thing is we've been doing this for 16 years. We've done hundreds of live events. We've generated over $450 million over the course of the last 16 years.
For our clients.
Yes, for our clients. I wish it was for us. Gosh, that would be awesome.
Just to be clear, over $450 million.
I may be on a beach right now instead of in a podcast studio.
You'd still be doing
it. Maybe.
You'd just be doing it from the beach.
Exactly. So, I mean, one of the things that's really amazing about that is everything that we've learned over the course of the last 16 years with regards to hosting and producing successful virtual event or live events also works virtually, which is really, really awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
If you do it well. And there's a few things you have to do. But first, we're going to talk about 80%.
Yeah.
80. This is good news, I think. 80% of what we do in in-person live events and 80% of what we do in virtual live events, the same.
Barry Baumgartner. I'm sorry, but she's about to give you something really important. But Evelyn... So Barry was trying to debate earlier today. I think Evelyn is talking to you, Barry Baumgartner, when she says, "I like your outfit, girl." I don't think she's talking to me. I think she's talking to you.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
I appreciate that, Evelyn.
Yeah, Barry really was debating whether to sweater or not to sweater. And she chose to sweater. So anyway, you were saying one of the things that we have discovered, which is really awesome. And again, some of these things we really have learned in the last 60 days. So these are...
And we weren't sure. I mean, going into this big experiment, and we weren't sure what it was going to look like. I mean, each event we've learned a little bit more, and we're going to be sharing what we've learned with you here. But what we know for sure now that we've done 3 of these, 3 high-performing virtual events, is that 80% is the same. And that's great news. Why? Because if you've been doing in-person live events and you're thinking you have to make a pivot to virtual and that's scary, 80% is the same. If you've never done a live event, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this year I'm going to have to start with virtual, then I'll be pivoting to in-person, 80% is the same. If you plan to do both, 80% is the same. That's great news in my opinion. 20% is different. And the 20% that's different comes down to 2 things. It comes down to tech and touch. The technology is different and the touch points are different. And then there's one other little piece of this: tech, touch, and the things you have to do to get people to show up, right? Exactly. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk tonight three core things that we're going to talk about. Number 1, the tech, right? Number 2, the touch.
Yeah.
The touch. She's my wife, just in case.
This is also why we're not social distancing. We also have people write in and be like, why aren't you social distancing? Why are you staying so close together?
Yeah.
But we've been quarantined for 60 days. We do actually live together. We are actually married.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of social distancing going on at this table. And then finally, we're going to be sharing 4 amazing show-up strategies that are allowing us to get between 70 and 90% of the people who register for these events to actually show up live.
Show up for the event, not just for one day.
3 days straight.
3 days straight.
Exactly.
That's right. 3 days straight. And many people thought that wasn't possible. Like even our own clients and hosts were like, no way are they going to show up for 3 days virtually. And we're like, yeah, I think we can do this. The first one we tried it, they did it. The second one, they did it. The third one, they did it. The show up rates are really similar. We're going to share those percentages with you and exactly how we did it. 4 ways.
Absolutely. Okay. So number 1, I think it's important to know right off the bat, this is not a live stream, right?
Not this.
No, this right now is a live stream, but we're not talking about, when we say virtual events, we're not talking about live streams. And actually, I'm curious.
Type it in the chat. Like if I say virtual event, if we said virtual event, what do you think a virtual event is. Like when you hear the words virtual event, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Just type it in the chat.
For sure. And to answer your question, Charles and a few other folks, I see JT mentioned it. We have about 15 minutes at the end that we don't have any planned content that is meant for open Q&A. So
jot those questions
exactly.
down.
Every time you see me looking down at my computer, I'm not, I don't know, browsing Facebook or something. Although there is a Facebook Live, so I am looking at Facebook. But I'm looking at the chat. I'm looking at what you guys are saying in real time because, yes,
I'll keep an eye on him. He's slippery, that one. So I'll keep an eye on him.
Slippery little suckers, says Julia Roberts. No, it wasn't. It was the butler that said it after the escargot. Yeah. All right. So when it comes to live stream, or virtual events right now, I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but for me, I can't go a day without getting an email or having a client tell me about a new platform that is virtual events. So,
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I told you we're not talking about live stream. So we're not talking about YouTube Live or Facebook Live or livestream.com or Ustream. Those are all great platforms. We're also not talking tonight, I say there's lots of options. That's what the slide says. I should follow my notes. And, here are just a few of them. You've got Bizaboo. You've got Socio, you've got Glisser, On24, Boomset, you've got Eventia, you've got Wova, Sococo, Brella, VFairs, Pathable.
Verbella's not on there, but Verbella's one. And I feel like every day I get a new one. And when we do these trainings, people type in one we haven't heard yet. So I'm sure there are others. And this is not to put any of those down. Like, I think they all have a place in our world right now. I think it's super exciting that you're having all this innovation to allow people to come together virtually. Mm-hmm. But here's what we believe, now that we've done this multiple times, is that out of all those options, the one we really think you should be using isn't even there. It is
Zoom. Is that your drum roll?
That's my drum roll.
Like that?
It's Zoom.
It's Zoom. And, just like Maurice and Rebecca in the chat, Zoom is an awesome platform. It's been around for a long time. It's easy to use, but there's a few things that we think make Zoom so amazing for these multi-day, long format virtual events, right? Virtual experiences. And that's that, Zoom really does provide the two things that are probably the first most important things when it comes to virtual, which is that tech and touch.
Yeah, tech and touch. And, it's interesting. In our household, we have one person who is like techie. I mean, he like listens to Nerdcast for fun, right? That makes my eyes glaze over. And we're in the car together doing like a road trip. We have to fight over what we're going to listen to because the Nerdcast put me to sleep. But he listens to the Nerdcast. And I'm like one of those, the tech makes my eyes glaze over. Like, I just want to get to, bring me to the fun stuff. But here's what's awesome. I mean, why we love Zoom is whether it's me, who's not a techie, or Blue, who is a techie, it works equally well for both. And that's great news if you're a host and you don't have to be a techie to make this work. I think that's awesome. And for your attendees, no matter what age they are, no matter what country they're in, no matter how technology proficient they are, it's easy to use. And that's super important. You don't want there to be a big barrier to entry for you, your team, or your attendees. And the good news is Zoom is an easy and affordable platform.
Yep. And one of the nice things about Zoom is listen, you can do pre-recorded content on Zoom. Dan mentioned that the interesting thing about virtual is you can do a combo of pre-recorded and live. And personally, for our virtual events, we have done everything live. Mm-hmm. Nothing has been pre-recorded. And we find that that's because we're looking for interaction, right? Remember, people come to live events for three main reasons. All right. So this is your first writer downer. I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to let you grab a pen if you don't have one already, a piece of paper. And you ready for this? These are the three reasons that people come to live events typically. Number one, content. Number two, connection. And number three, community.
It's that simple.
And when it comes to virtual, the first one is easy, right? Anybody can do content. You can do what we're doing right now with the YouTube Live. You can open up your phone and stream to Instagram or Facebook in a heartbeat.
Especially you guys, you know your content. You know you've got great content. So that piece you've got down pat. Let's talk about the connection and community piece.
The connection and the community piece are much harder to do virtually because in order to create connection, in order to create community, you need people to be able to see each other. You need people to be able to talk to each other. And you need to be able to see them, and you need to be able to talk to them.
You especially, you the host.
Yes.
Because what we know to be true after years and years of producing events for some of the top names in the industry is if the host isn't feeling connected, if the host isn't feeling engaged, nobody's going to be feeling connected and engaged. It's super important that the host be able to be connected to that audience and to that experience, which is why Zoom and some of the things we're doing there are so impactful, because they're really allowing the host a high level of engagement with the audience and getting to interact with people. You know, we talked about this. We're going to share some visuals of this, but you know, if you, in a normal in-person environment, let's say you had a room of 500 people or 1,000 people, if you're the host on the stage, you're maybe seeing the first 5 rows. I mean, if you're being really honest, you're seeing the faces in the first 5 rows. After that, it's a sea of faces, right? But with Zoom and what we're going to share with you tonight, you're seeing a lot of faces. In some cases, all the faces, depending on the size of your event. So the level of engagement with that for you and for them with each other is huge. And that engagement leads to that community piece, which is critical, especially if you're making a high ticket offer. If you have an enrollment event, if you're working on a purpose-driven payday, content, connection, and community are at the heart of high ticket enrollments, higher conversions.
Absolutely. Well, and first off, it's not first off, I also want to say hi to Esther. Esther Miller is saying,
Hi.
hey, she says,
Love you. We haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
So that's great to have you with us.
Yeah. Well, not so many live events.
I know.
But I'm actually pretty sure I saw Esther register for something that we have going on in a couple of weeks that I'll tell you, or in about 10 days that we'll tell you a little bit more about later. So looking forward to seeing you next week, Esther. So let's talk about Zoom and how it is really the platform of choice from both the audience's perspective and also the host's perspective, because both are important.
And the team's perspective.
Oh, and the team's perspective.
It makes it easy for the team. We don't have that on the slide, but I'm throwing it in there.
All right.
It's true.
Let's go
It's
for it.
important. The team has to be into it too.
I love that.
Why is it though? Let's tell them.
Well, so first off, from an audience perspective, remember back to connection and community, there's 2 real keys that make it work surprisingly well and surprisingly effective for creating that connection and community. The first one is a feature that not many people know about in Zoom called breakouts. And most of you have probably seen it at this point, but the reality is the breakout feature is awesome. It allows you to take large groups and break them down into small groups. We're not talking about breakouts in the traditional concurrent session, way that you see breakouts at live events where
Like different speakers in each room.
Exactly.
We don't mean that.
No, we mean specifically the ability to, in the midst of a presentation, be able to give people an exercise. And much like you've seen if you've been to a live event, and the host on stage says, all right, take a couple minutes and talk with the person next to you and share your biggest takeaways from today.
Or share at your tables, right?
Yep.
So that concept of 6 to 8 people sharing at their round table in the general session room can absolutely be accomplished in breakouts. And the cool thing is it can even be done at scale. I mean, we're talking 10,000 attendees able to go into breakout rooms that allow 6 to 8 people to share around a virtual table. That really creates what? Connection and community around your content, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. The second thing that is and by the way, breakouts are a feature that everybody can use. Whether you have a free account and you're hosting like a 40-minute Zoom meeting, all the way up to the business and the pro level. It doesn't matter what level of Zoom you have, you're able to get access to this feature. It's just in your settings, you got to turn it on. And once you do, it's super fantastic awesomeness. Next thing, gallery view.
Also awesomeness.
I love the gallery view. I mean, check this out.
No, this is pretty
What's
awesome.
better than sitting in a meeting and seeing the faces, especially right now, of every single person you're interacting with? We've been
not for the host and for the audience. And here's the thing I think is cool right now in Zoom land is that you see people in their home environments. I think that's kind of a fun feature.
Yeah.
So often you're seeing, the polished host on stage and, the polished all this, we put on our face, right? But I think it's really great to see people in their home environment. Like, oh, look at them on their back porch. Look, they have a dog. Look, their child just came in and kissed them on the cheek. You're seeing like a real behind the scenes interaction, which I think also improves that intimacy, that connectedness, and that sense of community.
Yeah, absolutely. So Two reasons that we absolutely love Zoom as a platform. The ability for attendees to be able to not only see each other, but actually hear each other as well. And here's the important thing, because I see a couple of comments in the screen or in the chat about the fact that you have, the webinar platform of Zoom. We're actually not talking about webinar.
And why is that important? Like the difference between Zoom webinar and Zoom meeting?
Well, first off, yes, we're talking about Zoom meeting. And the reason it's important is because Zoom webinar is very much like your standard live cast or, broadcast, much like we're doing right now. It just is inside a Zoom. You can elevate people to presenters, but not that many. And that's a pain in the butt process to do. So what winds up happening in a Zoom webinar is essentially, once again, you've recreated a live stream, which is I'm going out to the audience, but the audience isn't coming back to me. Yeah. So, and listen, it's awesome for chat, but
not for 3 days.
No, not for 3 days, because one of the things that we really want to be able to do is, give people a break, right? Give people a break up. Do a little bit of talk about active learning.
So, what we really want is for people to be able to consume and digest the information in different ways. So what Zoom meeting allows us to do is, like, let's say I'm the host. I'm going to teach some amazing content. And then I want you to do an exercise. I want you to first write it out, really like on your own. I'm going to play some working music. I want you to work it out. Then I want to send you into the breakout rooms where you can talk it out. And then I want you to come back and share. All those different ways of learning, actively learning, are so much more interesting than passive learning, where I'm just talking to you, which is kind of what we're doing now. I mean, we're getting some interaction from chat, and I love that, and thank you for that. We love the chat. But 3 days of trying to scan chat and it's your only mode of finding out what people are thinking is not the same as sending them into rooms and letting them talk to each other. Imagine if you could do that right the second. If I said, I'm going to teach you something, I want you to share, and I want you to come back and share here. Like, that is much more digestible and consumable, and you're going to remember it more. It's going to land more because you're consuming it in different ways versus just passively hearing us talk to you while you take notes. So active learning works well. It has worked well for years and years in the in-person environment. But the good news is I think it's a big part of why it's working in the virtual environment, because Zoom makes it possible.
Absolutely. So with that, I want to show you something that
This is like tech porn.
Yeah,
he wants to show you tech porn.
I really do. Let's talk about this from...
So for all of you nerds out there, and I say this with love, like I married like the biggest nerd ever, but
not the biggest,
yeah, I think it's
but
like nerds
there.
will inherit the earth. It's like one of those moments.
We rule the world.
You rule the world. But seriously, like for all you techies out there, this is pretty cool. And even if you're not a techie, I think this is pretty sexy. Let's take a look at it.
So from the host perspective, we decided to create something pretty amazing. We call it Zoomzilla. And listen, I'm showing you this so that you can be inspired, not because it's what you actually need, but as you can see here, this is Pete Vargas on stage, and he's looking out at a bank of about 13 different monitors. He can see a whole bunch of different faces and names. This is me pretending to be an MC. Actually, I was an MC for this event. I just didn't do it terribly well.
I thought you were great.
Oh, you're my wife. You have to say that. And then this is, again, Pete. Another thing that you can do is not only have the, in our studios anyway, not only have the faces of about 400 people in front of you, but also then put another couple hundred people up on the big screen behind you.
All these people you can see completely interactive, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then have a panel.
Yeah,
this is a panel.
This is a panel. Barry interviewed Pete and 4 other folks, which I thought was pretty awesome.
I think really Pete interviewed us.
Oh, what did I say?
You said I interviewed them.
Oh, that's true.
Really Pete, just to be fair. I think
No, that's accurate.
But that was super fun. And so there you are. I mean, you can have an in-person guest in your studio, or you can have people completely zoomed in, or a combination of the two, which is highly interactive and a lot more fun for the audience.
But listen, that's awesome. And what we're doing is we're taking 16 different Zoom meetings. We're tying them all together so that we can expand Zoom's meeting capabilities.
Yeah, like just for fun, how many Zoom rooms have we created at any one time?
A total of 16. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
17,
when we break out, I mean, like when you go into the breakout.
Well, listen, so what we do is we cap our Zoom meetings at about 200 people per meeting, so we can do up to 3,200 people simultaneously. And by doing that, we're able to break down into small groups of 4 and have as many as 50 times 16, 800 breakout rooms.
So think about that.
Going simultaneously.
That's the equivalent of 800 tables in your ballroom, except they don't feel all spread out and really far apart. If you were a host and you had 800 tables in a ballroom, imagine how big that ballroom would be and how far the people would be in the back. But now all of a sudden they're feeling super close together, and then boom, we send them into 800 rooms, and then boom, literally with the touch of a button, we bring them back, which is super awesome. But if you're sitting there thinking, but wait a minute, I don't need that many breakout rooms. I can't possibly have that much technology, and I'm not going to have that many people. How do I make this work for you? How do I make it work for me? We're going to tell you. It's simpler than you think. What could you do with stuff that you already have to make this work?
So like Barry said, it doesn't need to be high tech. You can make this as easy as hosting a meeting, hosting a virtual event with your computer and a television. And you're probably thinking to myself,
you probably already have that, right?
And listen, if you don't, it may be an excuse to buy a TV.
It's a tax write-off.
Or a new computer, I guess. Yeah, it's a tax write-off. That's awesome. When was the last time you could buy a 65-inch television and say it's for business?
It's my business.
But really, right now, it can be. And here's what I mean by that. You can literally take your computer, the camera that's built into the top of your pretty much every computer screen, right? It doesn't have to be a Mac. PCs have them as well. And then take a $4, $5 HDMI cable, plug it into your TV, and now on your screen, you can have your camera as well as your content. And on your big screen TV, you can have gallery view with up to 50 people with like different tabs that you can kind of go across. And now all of a sudden you have up to 300 people and possibly more at your disposal, and you can actually see them and interact with them. And it becomes a much more engaging experience because you start looking up at the TV and you start saying, oh, hey, Barry, I see you're wearing a sweater today. Nice that you showed up. But your husband next to you is only wearing a T-shirt. What's going on there? Is he cold or are you hot? One of the two is accurate. Newsflash, I'm cold. Anyway, so it's really awesome. And then as maybe you want to be a little bit more techie. Maybe you want to increase your level of video quality so you can get an external camera and connect it to your computer. You can then go up one extra level and get an external microphone.
So it's sort of like these layers of nice, not necessary. Like necessary, computer and TV.
Yep.
But outside of that, you could scale. You can add on as you go, which again, the great news is if you're just contemplating starting out in virtual world and doing your first virtual meeting using Zoom, you can start with really simple tech.
Yep.
And then you can accelerate from there once you feel comfortable with the medium.
Absolutely.
So now I would be thinking, if I were them, before I go out and invest in my brand new 65-inch TV or whatever size, it doesn't have to be that size. We're joking there, but let's share some results just so that they can get a sense of what's possible.
I definitely want to do that, but you mind if I
feel like you were saying before that.
But before that, I want to actually acknowledge Evelyn. She says she has both. She's got a computer and a TV. Atta girl.
Evelyn, you can do this.
And Kim says, we've been doing that. Usually get 25 on one screen. Can we get more? Yes.
Yeah, how do you do that?
So if you go into your settings inside of the Zoom app on, I believe, the video tab, there's a little checkbox that says show 49 people in grid view, 7 across, 7 down.
Done.
And now all of a sudden you go from 25 to 49. Looks better on a big screen TV, of course, than it does on a small computer, which is why it's turned off by default. But you turn that sucker on, again, doesn't matter what level of Zoom you have. This is why I love Zoom. And no, they are not sponsoring us. However, Zoom, if you're listening, happy to take you on as a sponsor. Just give us a call.
I think that's going to happen.
Yep. events@poweredbysage.com is how you reach out to us. All right.
All right. So now let's dive into some results. Are we ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So our first result that I want to share with you that we want to share with you from 2019, and we're going to compare apples to apples here, right? So we are comparing last year's event to this year's event. Last year's event, 2019, 300 attendees. This year, when they went virtual, they went up to about 4x, 1,200 people registered. We had 1,023 people actually check in, and of those people, 700 to 900 in attendance. That's
meaning day in, day out over the course of
3 days. Yep.
700 to 900 people.
Pretty awesome.
So, even with 700 to 900 out of the 1,200 checked in, that's 3 times what they would have had if they'd done their in-person event. So again, you go back to purpose-driven payday to impact and income, think of all the additional people served because they took this event virtual. And by the way, it went from being really a domestic US audience to being a global audience, which is also pretty cool when you think about impact. Then what happened?
Well, so let's talk about financial results because much like the majority of our clients, this is an educational seminar that also has a continuing educational component for people to be able to go further faster, right? I think in his case, it was like a 6-week program. So in 2019, they generated $600,000 in revenue from their live event. In 2020, they generated $720,000 from their live event, which, for those of us keeping score, is a 20% increase year over year. But the really cool thing is they had way higher profit because
that's really the number that matters, right? It's like gross is awesome, like having higher gross revenue, but having a higher net is also so important. Like that's really the train riding dollars that you're going home with. So that was a great story. So more people impacted, more people served, more results for those people, higher gross revenue, higher net profit. Go team, go.
Exactly.
That's a good one.
So,
and then you might think, well, that is just like one example, but what about the others?
Well, here's another one that in 2019 had 600 attendees. And when they went virtual, they went up to 3,000 plus people registered. They had 2,800 people check in, and they had 2,200 to 2,400 people in attendance, again, over the course of 3 full days.
Yeah, great numbers. I mean, that's incredible to go from 600 to 2,400 in the span of a year. Again, more people served, more lives transformed, and a bigger payday, more purpose, more profit.
Exactly. So in 2019, just to give you the punchline again, they generated $2.4 million in revenue from their live event.
Not bad for a weekend. Like that's a pretty good payday.
It's a great event. But this year, they did 2.5 times revenue year over year.
So if you have to do the math in your head, they went from 2.4 million.
I can't do that kind
to
of math.
over 7 million.
Those are big numbers.
Yeah, all virtual, right? 2.4 million in person to over 7 million virtual. So again, more people reached, more people served, and ultimately a much higher return for that client. And again, the gross was not only higher, the net was significantly better because virtual events are less expensive to produce. And for those of you just getting started, less liability, less overhead, no scary hotel contracts, no room blocks, no food and beverage minimums. And we love our hotel partners, but that is typically one of the scariest things for a first-time or first-time host or an event host who's trying to scale their event is taking on that additional liability. You don't have that here. So it's pretty awesome. You can get off the sidelines right now and scale your event if you're doing your next event, or if you've never done an event, now is your time. You can quickly put on a virtual event.
So let's talk about the biggest challenge that virtual events have in general. And I saw a lot of you when we asked the questions, what does a virtual event mean to you? A lot of you said webinar. Yeah. And the biggest challenge that so many of them have is getting people to actually show up. And, listen, generally the webinar show up rates, and it's true even for this broadcast, this free training, tend to be between 10 and 25%. If you break 30%, you're literally doing backflips down the hall. Dance. Yeah, it's like, it was an amazing day. That
can be scary, right? If you do all this work and you have gone from, let's use that last example, 600 to 3,000, and only 30% show up, that's not really the purpose-driven payday you were looking for. But when 22 to 2,400 show up, and so how do you get them to show up and stick with you? How do you get them to see your virtual event as something other than a webinar? How do you get them to see it as a true virtual event experience? We've done this 3 times, and we think there are 4 keys to getting them to show up.
Yep. So let's actually give you all 4. The first one is no recordings. So here's the thing. With most webinars, a big part of the reason why people don't show up, and this one is true as well. I saw a couple of you ask, "Hey, is there going to be a recording of this?"
Yeah, and the replay?
Yeah, newsflash. Yes, of course there is. But I want you to stick around.
Yeah, stick around. Yeah. Don't do that to us.
Don't do that. Don't leave. We're so excited.
We're here with you. Stay with us.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Most people don't show up not because they don't want the content, but because they know that there's going to be a replay later, or life gets in the way, and they're like, I don't need to see it live. There's no interactive. It's really just one way. I'll catch the replay when the host sends out the email with the link. Right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. We don't want that for virtual. So much like a live event, we've recommended to all of our hosts
And also, why is that important? I mean, with a 3-day, you're taking them on a journey, and to miss a little is to miss a lot. You're giving them content that ideally stacks on itself so that they're in continuous learning, so that they're reaching a grand conclusion, so they're getting a transformation. If they're treating it like a webinar and they're in, they're out, they're catching some, but not all, not only does it make it difficult for them to get that transformation that gives you that legacy and that impact that you're looking for, but it makes it really hard to make a high ticket offer because they're not really enrolled in the bigger concept of you, but more importantly, themselves. They haven't had that opportunity to really invest in what's this thing I'm learning and how am I going to apply it, because they're just not focused because they're in and out. We need them to show up and we need them to stay. So one of the things we do is no recordings.
No recordings. Yeah, because listen, if
no replays.
Yeah. Exactly. If you don't show up, much like a live event, if you don't get into the ballroom, like if you come down an hour late, you don't go to the back table and say, hey, can I get the recordings of the keynote presenter that just went? I know I missed him, but would love to see him. Is that all right?
Yeah. I'd like to see it when I feel like seeing it.
Yeah.
We don't do that in an in-person event. So why would we do it with a virtual event? And the answer is we don't. And it's resulted in a much better show up and stick rate.
Exactly. So next up, let's talk about the second thing that we've been doing with people to show up at a 70 to 80% to 90% in some cases turnout rate for virtual. And that's something called the swag box.
Yeah, like swag has swagger.
Exactly. So, listen, when you go to a live event and you check in, normally you get a bag, right, with some stuff in it. And, there's the notebook, there's maybe a sponsor,
flyer, there's a pen,
resource guide,
whatever it might be.
Tchotchke of some kind.
Right? Even if what you get is a badge, you're getting something.
Yeah.
And it just kind of establishes for you, like you've shown up, you're part of the club, and now you have this stuff. So why would a virtual event be any different? We really think you should send...
to show up for this event. I know we did. I probably sent too many reminders. I apologize. But the reality is, what's better? What's a better email reminder than a FedEx guy knocking on your door, handing you a box, and you remembering all of a sudden, oh yeah, I've got that virtual event thing this weekend. That's
now,
awesome.
All of a sudden it doesn't feel like a webinar, right? Because when's the last time you signed up for a webinar and you got a swag box? Like never, I'm guessing. And so that is a definitive line in the sand. Like there's no recordings and replay.
Yep.
And I've got a box full of swag to remind me that this is a different kind of event. So I'm even more excited to show up now because if it's this good so far, what else have you got for me?
So let's talk about the third thing. And
just really quick.
Yes.
Swag does not have to be super expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And it also shouldn't be throwaway. Like think about what would be intentional, what would really A, get them excited to show up, and B, something they can use during the course of the event. It doesn't have to be expensive, and less is more. I'd rather you have one really great piece of swag than 10 things that are going to end up in the trash can right away. So just know that it can be affordable. You don't have to spend a ton of money on swag to have that impact. So then the third thing.
Well, so the third thing, and actually, well, anyway, I'll get to that. The third thing is the in-person check-in. Yeah. And this is something that, we started doing for one reason. We're going to keep doing it for a completely different reason. I'll tell you the reason why we started doing it. Barry's going to tell you the reason why we kept doing it. Yeah. The reason we started doing it is because we wanted to be able to start on time and not have the first 30 minutes or so be, I can't see you, I can't hear you, how do I unmute my camera or unmute myself, how do I ask a question, how do I turn on my camera, all of the questions that you get virtually. So we sent everybody a link to literally go through a check-in, at their leisure, but over the course of 2 days, and have them talk with a member of our team and have our team basically walk them through the basics of Zoom. And we did it because we were like, listen, not everybody has gone through a Zoom meeting, although at this point, in our current state of the world, most people have. But now we know before the event takes place that everybody's been through a Zoom meeting, so we can start on time without any tech issues. That was the reason we did it in the first place. What's the reason we're going to keep doing it?
Yeah, the reason we're going to keep doing it is the touch points. Remember we said it came down, the 20% that was different was tech and touch. The touch point of getting to spend time with the attendee from the very first moment. Again, it's a definitive line in the sand. You wouldn't allow someone to walk into your ballroom without a badge. Why would you allow someone to walk into your virtual event without registering? So that warm up, that touch point, that in-person touch point, because when they did in-person check-in, they would click the link and they would show up. They're expecting just to click, click, click. But what they see is a person on the other side who's helping them through that tech check. They can ask questions. We can warm them up. We can introduce them to one another if more than one person's checking in at a time. And we can set expectations. When we're going through the tech check, you can say, hey, the host is going to be able to see you. So you're going to want to have your camera on. And by the way, you're going to be able to ask questions. So you're going to want to know how to mute and unmute. You're going to want to know how to raise your hand. You're going to want to show up early for door opening because yes, we did have door opening a half hour before we started. And yes, people showed up and hung out with us with our MC Blue to basically get ready for the host coming on stage for the first time. Content, connection, and community. All of that came through that first touch point of in-person registration. It also trained them to go to that area on our dashboard, that help desk area, anytime they had a question. So it became the de facto help desk, which I think is super important. And if you're going to be making a high ticket offer, you're going to at some point have people coming to the back of the room, even if that's virtual. It's going to be your virtual help desk. If they have any questions about your offer, are they more likely to do that if they've met your team at registration? Absolutely. And if they've been talking to them over the course of the event? Absolutely. So that really speaks to connection and community. Your team is able to create that connection from the very first point of registration and check-in. I don't think it's a small thing. I think that is really important to require a check-in and not just give them a link. Link feels like webinar and a check-in feels like a live event, a virtual live event. So that leads to the fourth thing, which we think is awesome. And it's not something we normally do.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
But before that, how many times have I said that today?
But before that,
there's more.
What are you going to say?
So listen, we've talked about 3 things so far, and Barry's right. We're going to talk about the fourth in like 2 seconds. But
you're going to tell another story.
No, I'm done with my storytelling. I've got one more story for you, but not right now.
Okay, not right now.
So who doesn't love a good story? I mean, come on.
You're a good storyteller.
Oh.
You can tell me a story afterwards.
Yeah, I love you. Okay. All right. So married, just in case anybody's wondering, married. That's not some weird.
Not a weird host.
We got an email to our support line that said there was some weird sexual tension going on between the 2 hosts. Something's going on there, and we were like, "Yes, they're married." So anyway, there's the sexual tension. All right. So what's really cool about those first 3 things is all of them happen before the event starts. Right? The no recordings, we tell them about early on when they're registering for the event. Yeah. Number 2, the swag box gets there before the event starts. Yeah. And number 3, the check-in process happens before the event starts. So they've seen 3 examples of this is completely different than anything that I've ever seen before. This is not a webinar that's been expanded over 3 days. This is not another Facebook Live.
Not a live stream.
Exactly. This is something different. And they've already, like Barry said, they've already spoken to a member of our team.
And then they get to the event, and what they start to realize is with every action taken, they're getting points. Why? Because we want it to be fun. At Sage, we think of it as
funification. Funification.
Yeah, this is not a real word, we realize, but we want to thank Julie Humrick for giving it to us,
yes.
The idea of funifying your event. And so, Funify we came up with Julie because I just think it's probably gamification is what you would traditionally call it. We don't love that word gamification.
Well, every time I hear the word gamification, I think of marketers from, 2-3 years ago where it was all the rage.
Like a hot trend,
yeah, exactly.
gamify.
And it was like Facebook bots a year later.
You hear people talk about gaming the system. It just, in our minds, it just had a negative connotation. It's never something that we've embraced or used in our in-person events. But in virtual world, funifying it, funification really does make a difference because we're rewarding them for taking actions we want them to take. It's very much a form follows function moment. So when they checked in, they got points. When they completed registration, they got points. When they showed up for door opening, they got points. When they didn't exercise, they got points. That point reward, which led to a leaderboard, which led to prizes and giveaways, kept them interested and engaged. And of course, they had to be present to win. So the whole concept of funification got them moving around the dashboard. It's almost like a treasure hunt. Where am I going to get points? We don't tell them how they're going to get points. They figure it out as they go because when they take actions, they get points that show up in their leaderboard, and their leaderboard qualifies them for awesome prizes. And interestingly, your prizes don't have to cost you anything. It could be gifts of your time. Like you could win a half-hour consult or a 1-hour design of your such and such or whatever it might be. Or it could be a Starbucks gift card or some awesome swag. You can decide. But by funifying it, you're keeping up the level of engagement once the event has started.
And listen, we did the funification process with a point system and a leaderboard, and there was some tech involved, but it doesn't have to be, right? This really can be as simple for you. Remember, we wanted to keep this simple because I want you at the end of this to be thinking to yourself, I'm ready to do my first or my next virtual event.
Whether it's 5, 50, 500, or 5,000, like whether you're doing an event for 5 people or 50 people or 500 or some variation of that, we want you to see that everything we're talking about here, you can do this too. So let's talk about how you simplify funification. If you don't have time to create a dashboard, if you're not married to a techie who could do that for you, what would you do?
So this can be as simple, guys, as creating a simple, well, this can, let me try and use the word simple one more time.
Tell me, how could it be simple?
This can be as easy as going onto Facebook, creating a free Facebook group, and asking people to post a comment in the Facebook group or post a photo in the Facebook group, and then rewarding them for taking that action. How do you reward them? Just have a member of your team or you on a break write down the names of everybody who took the action, throw them all into a fishbowl or whatever, any kind of bowl. And when you go live the next time, pick out a name and reward them with something.
It's really that simple.
Super low tech.
If you have a teenager at home, this could be them.
Oh yes, this is a perfect job for the weekend.
Yeah, but seriously, it can be that simple. So it doesn't have to be super fancy, but the idea of rewarding action is the big takeaway here.
Yes,
and that they have to be present to win. If you call their name and they're not there, they don't get the prize.
Well, and it comes down to, like you said, taking action, and really you want to reward them. And you said this already, so this is not something new. I'm lifting Barry's words and I'm repeating them for you. You want to reward them for taking action you want them to take anyway, right? So whatever that action is, think of a way that you can reward them, and now you're funifying the process. And that keeps them coming back because it keeps them engaged, right? So there you go.
Yes. So let's give an example of, are you going to highlight something? I was going to tell an example of one of our students.
Yeah, well, because
who actually pulled this off in a very simple way and had a really great return on her investment.
Yeah, because listen, the stories that we've told so far, or the 2 examples of people who are doing 1,200 people at their live event, 3,000 plus people at their live event, over $700,000, over $6 to $7 million. And I know that's a range, but there it is. Maybe it doesn't resonate with you, right? Maybe you're like, I can't get $700,000 of revenue from my live event. I can't even get 50 people to my live event. Here's the good news. It doesn't have to be that.
Yes, it doesn't even have to be a 3-day. So Kelly Schaefer is one of our students. We have a course called Rush, the Live Event Blueprint, and it teaches people all about live events, in-person events, how to run them, how to script your high-ticket offers, all the details of producing them, et cetera, et cetera. So Kelly's an amazing student. She is also an incredible coach to concierges. So her audience is concierges, and they're being really hard hit by COVID, and they need her now more than ever. And she'd been gearing up through her course to put on her very first in-person event. I think she had 50 or 60 people signed up for it.
She didn't have, that's what her goal was. She had just over 30 when it took place.
Yeah, so her goal was 50. She was on track for that with 30, and then COVID hit. So she was like, all right, well, I guess this is not the year for that. I'm like, no. Pivot. This can be virtual. Turn this into a virtual one-day event. Your people need you. Now's the time. You can beta test the offer. You can get in front of them. You can be strengthening that muscle so that when in-person events come back, you're ready. And here's what's awesome about Kelly and her quickly pivoting. How much time did she have to pivot from her in-person vision to her virtual?
From the time that we kicked her in the butt and said, you got to do this?
Well, lovingly said, you should really do this.
It was less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, so less than 2 weeks. So interestingly, the events that we've told you about, the very first case study we gave you, put together in less than 3 weeks. The second case study we gave you, less than 4 weeks. And the event we held last week, less than 2 weeks, 2,200 people. We haven't really given you the stats on that one, but Jeff Walker held his event in less than 2 weeks with 2,200 people. And then if that sounds too big and too overwhelming, then you have Kelly Schaefer, who in less than 2 weeks filled her virtual event. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so Kelly had 28 attendees show up. And it was a one-day event. And from that event, at the end of it, she made a high-ticket offer of $2,000. And it was an offer for them to work with her over the course of time. She got 6 students to sign up with her at that rate, which generated $12,000 plus in revenue in one day.
I call that 12K in a day. Like, not bad for a day's work. Like, hats off to Kelly. 12K in a day. Imagine what that would do for you, especially if you're a first-time host, if you generated 12K in a day. And once you have that system down and you know it works like Kelly does, now you can wash, rinse, repeat that. You can host another one day next month and then the month after that, so that you have a regular stream of revenue, your purpose-driven payday, but also you're having that impact with your audience. You know they need you right now. One of the biggest takeaways from this that was so awesome isn't just that Kelly made 12K in a day. It's that there were 30 people, 30 concierges who were thinking they were out of business, who now have the tools and resources to keep making money in this economy, whether they bought with Kelly or not. 28 people got that, and then 6 are going to continue working with her so they can really nail her systems and processes. That is awesome.
It is.
That's why we do this every day.
Well, and with that story, I think between that and the others that we mentioned, I think the reality is we'd love for you to think about what would be possible for you. Like, imagine what you could do if you decided to host a live event and you said, you know what, I'm going to host a live event before the month of June is over. How many people could you get to your live event? What kind of offer could you make from your live event to have them work with you in the future? And could you jumpstart your business? Or maybe you've thought to yourself, I wanted to do a live event, but it's always been a little bit scary because, listen, signing a contract with a hotel and having to put your pen on the dotted line at the bottom of that contract is a scary thing.
Yeah,
and
that's where your real liability is. And I mean, listen, new level, new devil, even for those of you who've been hosting in-person events, as you grow, the scariest part of growth is increased liability as you go in. So a really nice opportunity right now is being able to still reach your audience, still make incredible income, still nail your purpose, and not have a tremendous amount of overhead with a much higher net potential.
Yeah. So
how about you? How would you do this?
Exactly.
Yeah. What is that dream you have? When could you put this idea into action? Could you have this working for you? These very same tools, put these 4 strategies we gave you tonight to work right now and have your own purpose-driven payday?
I think you can.
Yeah.
And we're going to do something that hopefully will help you do that even faster.
Like, our job is to make it even easier for you.
Exactly. So we'd like to invite you to an event, a virtual event that Barry and I are hosting next weekend, May 29th through the 31st. And
much like our clients, we put this together in less than 30 days.
Exactly.
And, we know that they could, so why couldn't we? Because we're being inundated with requests for information on how to do this, like calls, emails from our mastermind, from our friends, from clients of clients, all saying, how do we pivot from in-person to virtual? And how do we do it quickly to take advantage of this moment? When I say take advantage, I don't mean being opportunistic. I mean taking advantage of this opportunity to serve your people. Unprecedented time, unprecedented challenges, an unprecedented opportunity to reach out to people and support them with an unprecedented offer. And so to help you get there, we have an event, and I think if I do say so myself, we came up with a very clever name.
It is marketing crack team at work. That's what's going on.
Join us for the
virtual event
on virtual events. I mean, it says it all, right? It's the virtual event on virtual events.
Exactly.
You know what that is. So if you're interested in learning how to put on your own virtual events, whether you've never done an event before, but you've always wanted to, or you've been hosting in-person events and you're trying to figure out this pivot, the virtual event on virtual events is designed to help you. It's broken into 3 days. It's a 3-day event. And on the first day, we're covering strategy because we're a strategy first company. If you didn't know, SAGE stands for Strategic Advice for Growing Events. So strategy first means strategy first. So the very first day, of course, we're focused on strategy. And this is the cool thing, that 80% that we talked about that's the same, that's the strategy part. That's why we start with that on day 1. So whether you're interested in doing in-person or virtual, that 80% that is the same is nailing your big why, nailing your right fit client, nailing how to fill the room, nailing your high ticket offer, knowing exactly what you're going to offer and who you're going to offer it to. Because once you know that, the rest of it is so much easier. We see so often people make the mistake of designing their marketing, designing their program, designing everything, and they're not even clear on their offer, who they're trying to offer it to. So if you start with strategy first and get really clear on that with real-time working with your workbook and with interactive exercises and breakouts, which you're going to experience, then your strategy first solid foundation is in place so that on day 2, we can do virtualize. So day 1 is strategize. Day 2 is virtualize. So Blue Melnick, let's talk about virtual. What's going on over there?
Oh my God, I'm sorry. I got distracted by a friend of mine who, gosh,
I feel like relating.
I can't even say it. Anyway, I'm sorry. I got distracted by somebody in the chat. Really funny. All right. So day two
is virtualize.
Virtualize. And
where we're going to talk about on day two, I'm taking over. On day two. We're going to talk about revenue generation. So it's really important. Like, how are you going to pay for this virtual event? Yes, it's less expensive to host a virtual event than an in-person event, but we'd love for you to know that there's 6 or 7 different ways that you can pay for your event that are super easy. And again, they work whether it's 5, 50, 500, or 5,000. So we're going to share those and strategize with those with you so that you know. We're also going to be talking about what are your favorite parts of an in-person event and how do you virtualize them? So we're going to talk about virtualization. And as part of that, we're going to talk about the all-important tech stack. I know people are always asking, how does the tech stack work? And of course, we're going to explain exactly between day 1 and day 2, you're going to see in real time how to start with that basic tech stack and then how to add on to that as you get more sophisticated and you scale and you grow. And then day 3 is actualize. And this is how you actually put ideas into action. So actualize is really important. I'm a big fan that when you go to a 3-day event, you want to leave with some of the work done, a lot of the work done, so that when you get home, it's easy to put ideas into action. So on day 3, we're talking about how you close sales. We're talking about how you make your offer. We're talking about how you prep your team. We're talking about your production timeline. We're talking about roles and responsibilities, all those little details that have to come into place for your event to actualize. And that includes designing your program at a glance. A lot of you make the mistake of designing your program before you design your offer. Strategize is designing your offer. Virtualizing is taking it virtually. And then actually the actualization process is putting those ideas into action into your PAG and getting your team to embrace them. Again, that's whether you have a team of 1 or 5 or 10 or 110. It doesn't really matter whether they're full-time employees, part-time employees, or members of your family that are going to support you. We're going to guide you through exactly what that looks like.
So with that being said, you're probably saying, okay, that sounds awesome. How much does it cost? Yeah. Well, this is our first live event. We were going to do an event in January of 2021, but with this happening, we got a phone call from a gentleman by the name of Reed Tracy, who runs Hay House Publishing. And Reed said, you guys know so much about this stuff. You've got to get the word out. And, I said to Reed, what would you charge for something like this? And he said, if it were me, I would charge $5,000 to $10,000 because, honestly, I would send my team to do that. We have authors that I think should be doing this. Like, it is well worth the price of admission. So, we took that and we thought about it. And then we decided, okay, how can we make this even better? Because it's only 3 days. There's some things that we think are really important that also work live that we want to make sure that we include as a part of this. So we have 2 bonuses that I want to share with you.
Just expand the learning beyond the 3 days.
Exactly.
I don't want to take a ton of time on the first one at the virtual event on virtual events because not everybody's ready for it. But for some of you, you're interested in doing a coaching zone. You've seen strategy sessions or you'd like to support strategy sessions. You may have 1 coach or 5 coaches or 10 coaches. And so a strategy session or coaching zone is an opportunity for the audience to get real-time help during the event, implementing the ideas that they're hearing. And we get requests for this all the time. Like, how do you design it? How do you hire for it? How do you incentivize for it? How do you train? How do you script? How do you run them? How do you book them? How do you calendar it? How do you keep it moving? How do you close people in strategy sessions? All of those topics come up all the time. And so I created a mini course on this and we're going to offer it to you. We sell it for $9.97, but if you come to the virtual event on virtual events, we're actually going to give it to you as part of the 3 days.
Right. So bonus number 2, I'm actually really excited about this one. Over the course of the last 16 years, Barry has gotten exceptionally good at having conversations at the back of the room and learning what people's primary objections are to moving forward, right? And typically,
with the high ticket offer,
and sometimes just generally speaking, moving forward
in general.
Yeah. And those things come down to 5 key points. And Barry's going to tell you what they are in just a moment, but we've got a mini course on it called Overcoming Objections. It's something that sells for $1,997, but we're going to include it as a part of this because we think it's a key part to getting your live event done right is understanding what's in the minds of your attendees and how you can work with them to overcome those objections and help them move forward one way or the other. So, Barry, what are those 5 things?
Yeah, I mean, I look at overcoming objections as the one thing that we're offering is being worth the price of admission. If you're going to be in the business of enrollment events, you really need to understand the nature of psychology, what your attendees are thinking, the kinds of objections they're going to have, and how you can overcome them, not just so that you can sell them, but so that you can serve them. Something we really believe at Sage is sales is service. If you serve people hard, you can sell them easy. And the heart of that is I learned early on in my career, both as a cold calling salesperson, as someone who worked at a lot of events in back of rooms, is nothing is worse than that icky feeling of feeling like you have to manipulate someone into buying. That's not what we're talking about here. The sales as service approach is how you can serve your audience to help them overcome the 5 most common objections. And even if you don't join us, I want you to write these down. They're super important. The 5 most common objections that you're going to hear at your live event are, I don't have time, I don't have money, I'm worried about talking to my spouse about this, I'm scared to do this, fear, and I have shame and self-doubt. I'm ashamed that I haven't been super successful, or I'm ashamed that I haven't done the work. Those all show up. So time, money, spouse, fear, shame, and self-doubt. Those 5 things literally show up all the time, and they tend to be the things that most hamper a host or a team when they're making a high-ticket offer or when they're servicing their audience, because they don't know a service-based approach to support helping to guide the attendee through that fear, through that objection, and make the reason not to their reason to. And if you're looking for a purpose-driven payday and you're committed to helping your attendees move forward so that they get the transformation over time that is not only your legacy, it's theirs, you know this is super important work. So I think of overcoming objections as one of my most important services that I've developed over the years because I so believe in supporting and serving our audiences.
Absolutely.
So we include that too.
We do indeed. So with that, over $8,000 in value coming to the virtual event on virtual events, May 29th through the 31st. The price point that we came down to, because that felt a little high, even though I feel like the value is definitely there, we said, okay, let's make it $997.
And that felt like a really fair amount.
Yep. But
and then Blue came to me
and said, no, we got to do it better. We got to do better.
We could do better. And we could. I mean, given that it's a virtual event, we felt like our in-person event is $997. But if this is a virtual event, we know people are trying to figure this pivot out, and we know that we have the keys to help them. Let's make it a no-brainer and make it super easy for you to say yes to yourself, yes to showing up for the virtual event on virtual events, so that you can learn how to do this too for your audiences. Again, 550, 500, 5,000, it doesn't matter. Everything we're going to be covering and strategize, virtualize, and actualize over the 3 days is something you can apply right away. So for $97, you can join us. And here's what's cool. If you join us for 3 days next weekend, you literally could be hosting your own virtual event in June. That's right. Your very first or your next in-person event could be virtual, and it could be in June, and get you set on your own purpose-driven payday right away.
Exactly. So a couple ways to register. Easiest one is just go to pbsage.com/TVE.
That stands for the virtual event. So
yeah. And PB,
powered by Sage, PB.
Peanut butter sage. peanutbuttersage.com
/TVE. He keeps insisting on saying that. I don't know why he keeps insisting on doing that. He knows it irritates me because it really stands for powered by. So pbsage.com /TVE. That's where you go so that you can join us for the virtual event on virtual events.
And if you're watching this, on sagehub.com, there is a form right below this video. You can fill that out as well. Yes. So that price point, just so you guys know, tomorrow night at midnight, so Friday night at midnight, that price is jumping up to $297.
That's right.
So,
and there's another piece. We have swag. Of course we do, because we so believe in swag, good swag.
Yes.
And so one of the things that also disappears tomorrow is swag. So if you register before tomorrow night, you're only going to pay $97, and it includes an amazing swag box being delivered to your home. But after tomorrow night, that disappears. Not only does the price go up, but the swag goes away. Why is that? Because it has to get shipped so it can arrive to you in time. And our deadline with our printer is tomorrow night at midnight. So you have until tomorrow night at midnight to claim your ticket for just $97, and we'll be sending that swag box directly to your door.
For sure. So we would love to have you join us May 29th through the 31st. But we still have I told you we were going to have about 15 minutes at the end of it. It's like we've done this once or twice.
We want to hear your questions. I'm dying to hear your questions.
Yeah.
But before we do, I feel like we should be sharing the one thing we promised.
Yeah. So type your questions in the chat because I am watching that and we'll address them. I know Sonia, I think, had a question that I saw that we'll address in just a moment. But before that, I promised you that at the end of this, we'd share with you what most people are getting wrong. And to be fair, we've actually already said it, but it really is worth mentioning. Yeah, worth mentioning again. And that is that most people who are doing virtual events right now are looking at them like the only other thing that they know of when it comes to virtual events, which is webinars. And they're taking webinars and they're extending them over the course of 1, 2, or 3 days. And this is a small distinction, but when it comes down to is virtual events are live events. So
don't think of it as a webinar. Think of it as a live event. It's a live event being virtualized, not a webinar being extended over 3 days. It's like Blue said, it's a nuance, but it's a really important nuance that makes all the difference in how many people are going to register for your event, how many people are going to show up for your event, and how many people are going to stay for your event. Exactly.
So everything that you should do when it comes to your live event is look at it, or to your virtual event, look at it like a live event, not a webinar. And, that comes down to how long should people stay with you, right? You expect different. And in addition to expecting different, you have to actually do something different, right? What is it? Is it Einstein that said craziness, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result? I don't know who said it.
It was Einstein, but I do
like
that clip.
I feel like it could have been Einstein.
I think it was Einstein that said, in every difficulty lies an opportunity.
Oh, well, there is that.
And I love that one.
He said some smart stuff, that Einstein guy. What do you think that's all about? So there are a couple of questions. Let's see. So first question was, what are the times for the event? So each day the event starts at about 11 o'clock in the morning. Eastern time. And it goes through about 7:30 at night on also Eastern time.
The only exception to that is day 3 will be a little shorter. So it's 11 to 7 on day 1 for Strategize. It's around 11 to 7:30 on day 2 for Virtualize. And it's like 11 to 5 on day 3 for Actualize. And all of that is in your welcome kit. So you'll get a detailed schedule in your welcome kit.
Yeah. So that's the dates. I also want to congratulate a couple of folks. Susan Gregory just registered. Susan, so happy to have you with us.
Yeah, I love Susan. Can't wait to see you.
Let's see. I see Jenna Lester, who just said that she is registered. Excited. Michelle French Twist Designs. I'm guessing that's not a last name. That's a
like
thing.
The name French Twist Designs.
So do I. I like it a lot. So you are you're coming. Glad to have you with us. So we are excited to have you all with us.
Yeah, and I think one thing to keep in mind that's cool about the virtual event experience, the virtual event on virtual events, is you're going to experience a virtual event as an attendee, and then you're going to learn how to do it as a host or a third party. So I think it's one of the best ways to learn. We talked about that active learning is actually experiencing it. So the virtual event on virtual events, you get to be the attendee, going through registration, going through tech check, going through leaderboard and funification, getting your swag box, all the things that we've talked about, and then actually learn the mechanics of how to make it work for your own live event.
Exactly. So let's see, what else do we have? I do have a pre-recorded series. Will this apply to this format? My audience has virtual fatigue and want a series. Sarah, that's a great question. I don't know.
Here's my hallucination, Sarah. Mm-hmm. Your audience has virtual fatigue on webinars. I'd be shocked if they have virtual live event fatigue because there's so little of it out there and so few people are doing it. Like really, truly, I want you to pause for a second and think about that. Are they tired of webinars? Or are they tired of virtual event experiences? Because they're not the same, and that's why you're watching us tonight, and why you would think of joining us for the virtual event on virtual events is to learn how to draw that line in the sand and not only market that but deliver that. I think it's really important.
For sure. Let's see. Matt asked, "What about 3D platforms?" So there's a couple different approaches to 3D platforms. I've seen a VR platform, but the challenge with that is it requires you to wear a VR headset for, in our case, we're talking about 3-day events. So not a lot of people are going to do that. Number one. Number two, battery problems become an issue.
I think it impacts connection and community.
Yeah. So not a huge fan of those. The other 3D platform or kind of VR platform that I've seen, something like Verbella, it reminds me honestly of Second Life. It's difficult to get into. I've actually gone into a demo event and interacted, and I've tried the whole thing. It took me 20 minutes to get the software installed and, get my avatar set up. And
it doesn't make Verbella not a good experience. I mean, I think it's awesome. I don't think it's the right platform for a 3-day virtual event experience.
Yeah.
Simple is sexy on this. You want to keep it as simple as you possibly can for yourself, for your team, and most importantly, for your audience. And 20-minute setups and having to learn something new can be a really big turn off for people who just want to get in there, get it done.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Limited number for 3-day event, ? This event sold out before I could get a friend on it. TX Glenn, event's not sold out yet. We still have, I believe it's 73 swag boxes available. So the next 73 buyers will for sure get a swag box as long as it's purchased by midnight tomorrow night.
Yeah, and here's like a little spoiler alert. I spent the entire ticket price on the swag box. So.
She did. She did.
I think you can't be out there talking about giving great swag and then not give great swag.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's. I think it's good. I hope you'll love it. But yeah, we put some good time and thought into that. It's been being printed this week. All the finishing touches went onto it last week. And so yeah, the next 73 people who register, you're guaranteed a swag box.
Exactly. Exciting. Don't forget to enter your shipping address on the last page. Let's see. Charles said, what will we be learning exactly? So Charles, I know we covered this a little bit earlier. You may have missed it. So day one, we're going to be talking about Strategize, which is the strategy for your live event. We're also going to be covering tech stack and tools on that particular day. So the strategy for your live event, how to actually put your live event together. And we start, like Barry said earlier, we start everything from a strategy first perspective here at Sage. That's why day one is all about strategy.
Actually designing your event on day one in many ways. And then day two, we're talking about how to virtualize it. It's how to take all the things that you love in person and virtualize them for your virtual event experience and how to pay for it.
Yep.
Revenue generation is key here. So all the tips, tricks, and tools that we use with our clients to pay for live events.
Exactly. Day two is going to be about virtualize. So Barry mentioned we're going to be talking about how to take the pieces and parts from your live event that you were possibly thinking of or from live events that you've been to before that you really like and actually make them real. We're also...
I just said that.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can say it again in case they missed it.
We're married. Sometimes we don't listen to each other. Every once in a while,
why don't you
happens.
tell them what we're doing on day 3?
No, I want to keep going on day 2. I got busted, folks.
Yeah.
All right.
That's okay. You're trying to manage chat at the same time you're doing this.
If you guys just thought that I got busted for tuning out Barry Baumgartner, post in the chat, busted. All right. I want to see how many of you agree. I literally
Maybe
just
I thought I said it and I didn't
busted.
say it out loud, but I'm pretty sure I said it out loud.
Exactly.
And then day 3, actualize. That's where we're going to design your program at a glance, your production timeline, your team training, your roles and responsibilities, all the things you need to do to take ideas and put them into action.
Yeah. So day 3, what we're going to talk about. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I was listening that time. Jeff P said, a little confused to register is at $97, but the full cost is $997. Jeff, the price to register is $97.
Yeah, the ticket value is $997, but we have reduced it to $97 until midnight tomorrow. Midnight tomorrow, that's midnight Friday, East Coast time. It goes up to $297, but the full ticket price is $997, and you'll be seeing that next week.
Exactly. Let's see here. Yeah, a bunch of people calling me out. Thank you very much. Catherine said that her husband does the same thing. I can't apologize for all men. I'll just apologize for me. I'm sorry.
It's okay, honey. I don't mind.
All right, let's see. What other questions do we have in here? So hopefully that answers that question. Oh, you know what? This really is, somebody mentioned this in the, Sarah just kind of said, I think she's said this in the chat. I'm reading and it's flying at the same time. Mm-hmm. This, for those of you who are thinking about doing a virtual event, I think that this event is great for two reasons. Number one, you're obviously going to learn some great content. Number two, there'll be great connection and great community. That's 2 and 3, actually. But the other thing that we're not really talking about is for those of you who are thinking about doing a virtual event in your business, the best way to learn what to do right, and not to toot our own horn too much, is to attend a virtual event done right. And I feel pretty strongly from the success that we've had in the past 60 days, as well as the clients that we have working with us to produce events in the next 45 days, which I'm really excited about, actually. Not to say that the others weren't exciting. It's just exciting to continue to have a business when you're an event planning company.
I think the really cool thing, and this is kind of a Sage hallmark, whether it's in person or virtual events, is we love innovation. So every event, we're like, what worked and what should we change? We call it instant up level and do differently. So what can we instantly up level and what can we do differently? So we've done 3 virtual events in the last 45 days. Each of them have looked slightly different. Each of them have been better than the last one. And we have more of those innovations coming your way because our next virtual live event is our own next week with you. And so you're going to see some even hot off the presses innovations we're debuting there. And we'll continue to do that. And, you know, I think it's one of the cool things about our space right now, not just our Sages, but the hospitality industry in general, is that there is room for this innovation as we all figure out a new normal with COVID. There's still so many restrictions that we haven't figured out. Hotels still have people on furlough. Hotels are still figuring out with fire marshals what the rules are on room sets and with their local, governorships, for lack of a better word, the local municipalities on what they're allowed to do, what the rules and restrictions are. So right now in an in-person world, you don't know if a ballroom can hold 1,000 people or 300, depending on whether they're having people sit next to each other or 3 to 6 feet apart. That's the kind of stuff that we're still figuring out along with our hotel partners as we all adjust to what's allowed and what's safe and what's doable under COVID, because we're still kind of living with this, right? It's not done. States are reopening and we're all kind of in limbo waiting. The thing that I think is best about virtual events right now is it takes the weight out of it. You don't have to live in uncertainty and not be sure. You don't have to wait for the hotels to figure it out. You don't wait to see what your governor says. You don't have to worry what other governors are saying if you have an audience that comes from all over the country. You only have to worry about you and serving your people. And trust me, they are ready and waiting for you. Now more than ever, they need leadership. They need certainty. They need content. They need connection. They need community. They need you now more than ever. It has been a tough 60 days for everybody. And everyone's trying to figure out this new virtual economy. And I'm here to tell you, the new currency in a virtual economy is experience. And that's what you're learning to create with a virtual event, is how do you get a return on engagement, which is a return on experience. And what we're going to be talking about for 3 days is how to create a really amazing virtual event experience so that you can connect with your people in a different way, serve them on a much deeper level, and lead them out of what has been a pretty dark period for not just our country, but for our global economy. I think there's no one like us, entrepreneurs, to lead the world out of the COVID crisis. And the way you start that is by getting out there in front of it, by getting out there in front of your communities and leading them and giving them the support and the content, connection, and community that they're craving, that they need, so that they can feel good about confidently keeping things moving.
Yeah. I really love what you just said there.
Thank you, love.
Yeah.
I believe it.
I know you believe it. That's why I love hearing you say it. A couple of people are asking, what's the all access upgrade? So we are, everything that we're doing with this live event, we are taking our own medicine, as it were. So recordings aren't available. You have to show up live. There is an all access upgrade. It includes a couple of things. Number one, it includes the recordings, which will be delivered 30 to 60 days after the event. Cool thing about how we're doing the recordings,
this is really cool, actually. This is a big takeaway, actually, I think, for you guys who do courses and are thinking of doing recordings, is that they include
searching. Yeah, they are completely searchable, meaning when you do get the recordings, you'll be able to, if there was something that we spoke about that you want to get back to, but you don't remember where it was, you don't have to watch the whole 3 days again. You go to the search area, type in the words that you're looking for, the phrase that you're looking for, and not only would it tell you what video it's in, but it will also give you a clickable link to allow you to get to the exact spot in the video where we spoke about the thing you're looking for.
Yeah, so let's say you have an all access pass. 30 days after the event, you get the recordings, and you're like, I really want to go back and visit the parts on sponsorship. You type in the word sponsorship. It will take you to every place within the 3 days where we talked about sponsorship directly into the video so that you can watch those exact spots. We use it in our course. We use it inside our company, and we're going to be using it for these live event recordings. It is one of the best innovations of the last year. We just love Stu McLaren and his team. And that's exactly who designed this. And if you haven't used it, trust me, you're going to be addicted to it once you do. The other thing that's included in All Access is
cocktail hour.
That's right. We love to end the day with a cocktail. That's what we do at home, just to kind of wrap things up and talk about our day. And we're going to do that same thing with you. So it's BYOC, bring your own cocktail. Spoiler alert, All Access has special stuff for the cocktail hour in their swag box. But basically, we come together at the end of night 1 and night 2 to answer your questions. And we're calling it an Ask Us Anything session. You can literally ask us anything you want about in-person events, virtual events, tech stack, high ticket offers, whatever you want it to be. We're there to answer your questions until the last person is served. So that's night 1 and night 2. And then we're also doing something I'm super excited about, which is a big deal to me. I find so often my biggest pet peeve in our industry is when people come to 3 days, sit through amazing content, and then don't do anything with it. They go home and it just falls away into the background and nothing ever happens. So we're giving you we're giving you a session with us, a strategy session with us, ideas into action, so that you can actually take what you learned and learn how to implement it. So it's a strategy session with me or with Blue, and it's only for the remaining VIPs. So again, limited number of people. If you're interested in doing All Access, you want to claim that. So to be super clear, it's a $97 ticket until midnight tomorrow night. If you want to do a general admission ticket, and if you'd like to upgrade to All Access, recordings, receptions, and the ideas into action session, that's an additional $197. $97 general admission, extra $197 if you want to join us for All Access. And it's that simple.
And
and it expires.
Well, I'm going to put never mind. That's good. Awesome. There it is. All right. Let's see. Let's see if there's any other questions. On a dime says, thanks for the info. You're welcome. Christina says, amen, Barry. Entrepreneurs are the souls of this world. Love that.
True.
Let's see. Is there anything else? I think that's it for the most part. Brian just registered. Congratulations, Brian. Glad to have you with us. TX said, he's looking forward to the May 29th event. Glad to have you with us.
Great to see you.
Charles said, signed up for the VIP. Want help with my launch July 20th through the 31st in NYC will be huge. 10-day challenge. Love that. You should be checking out, Charles, check out Pedro Adeo.
Yeah, if you're thinking of doing a challenge, Pedro is one of our clients. Amazing what he's doing with challenges.
Yeah.
You should absolutely check that out.
Yeah, it is absolutely awesome. He actually has a 5-day challenge that's about to start on Monday. Just do a Google search for Pedro Adeo. If you're on Facebook, you're probably I've seen like 50 million ads for it, more than ads for our stuff, actually. Could we talk about the size of our check-in team, Catherine? For 2,000 or for 3,000 people, we had 8 people doing check-ins. So if you compare that to a live event, it's a fraction of the people. So pretty awesome. Carol asked, will this work for fundraising or nonprofits? Carol, here's the thing.
And we get that question a lot.
I love that question, and I'm going to answer it quite honestly. Our focus for this event really is on entrepreneurs, small business owners, coaches, consultants, speakers, authors, influencers. And the stuff that we're going to teach, a lot of it does apply to nonprofits. In fact, we have a nonprofit trade association that is a client of ours, and we are using some of the things that we use with the majority of our clients to put on a 10-week, every 2-week nightly event. It's an
I'd say
awkward
30% of the content includes information specific to high ticket offer, and most trade associations are not doing a high ticket offer. So that percentage probably doesn't apply to you. The other 70% does. I think what's interesting for our trade association clients is that because we're in this primary digital marketing, information marketing space, we bring innovations that they don't normally get in their association world that translate really well because they're new and different. So for our trade association client right now, we're doing Cocktails and Conversation. It's a every other week series for 10 weeks. And they're getting rave reviews on it, using the power of Zoom, using all the things we've talked about tonight. They got swag, they got tech check, they don't have recordings, they show up together, and they have funification through Cocktails and Conversation. So much of that works. And that very same client, we're working on taking their annual conference, which I've been a part of for, gosh, this is scary, 25 years now, but taking their annual conference and virtualizing it. So a hybrid event where we're actually going to have people in person and also have a virtual component with trade shows, speakers, breakouts, et cetera. So I think it applies, and some of it doesn't. So definitely just something to think about on your own. At $97, it probably, even if you get 70% of it applies to you, it's probably worth it, but absolutely a judgment call on your part.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we're honest.
Absolutely want to be super transparent about that.
Exactly. I saw a couple of people, Greg asked about entertainment, and while some of this, again, same thing as nonprofits, a lot of it can apply to the entertainment space. That's not our focus, right? Yeah. So there you go. Let's see. Can I see the Cocktail and Conversations model link?
No, only because that's private to that trade association. I'm sorry. I'd love to share that with you, but that's now their proprietary information. But suffice it to say that they have a guest speaker every week. So it's every other week for 10 weeks. So it's 5 sessions. They do it during cocktail hour. We sent them a swag box with a cocktail glass, a cocktail recipe, a welcome card, that kind of thing. And each week they have a guest speaker who talks for a little bit. Then we send them into breakouts. They have interactive conversation around that topic, plus socializing. We bring them back for more socializing. And so it's, 75 to 90 minutes. And we've gotten rave reviews on it because they're craving content, connection, and community. And that's exactly what those Cocktails and Conversation hours provide. So yeah, it's amazing. I think, again, think about what you love in person and think about how you can virtualize it. That's a big part of what we're going to be talking about at the virtual event on virtual events.
For sure. Let's see. TV. There are a couple more people asking about the times again. Barry, do you mind just mentioning that one more time?
Don't hold me to this. It's in your welcome kits, but it's roughly 11 to 7 on day 1, 11 to 7:30, could go to 8 on day 2, and then 11 to 5 on day 3. So a little shorter day on day 3. These are all Eastern. We've just found that doing this over the last several weeks that those are the times that work the best for all coast. I know for some of our internationals it's challenging, so you have to bear with us. I really get that. There's no way to find a perfect time zone for everybody.
But here's the good news on internationals, and we've had this conversation a few times. If you live in Australia, yes, you're going to be up for the night. And it may be 3 days of sleeping during the day. It's like vampire hours. But here's the thing. If you were to come to a live event in the United States from Australia, you got to get on a flight that's like 172 hours or something along those lines. You have a 12 and a half hour time difference. So you're going to be jet lagged for sure. And then you got to go back. So the cool thing, and this is a great thing for you to know for your own virtual events. This is part of the reason why you've expanded your reach should you decide to go virtual, which I hope you do. It costs less. Not for you as the host, although that's accurate, but for your attendees, right? There's no longer the cost of a flight. There's no longer the cost of your hotel rooms. There's no longer the cost of meals out when you get there, or babysitters, or dog sitters, or, in-law sitters. There's Ubers, right? Rental cars. None of those things do you have the cost of anymore as an attendee.
And you're in the comfort of your own home to figure it all out and to nap when you need to, or, catch up on sleep. So I get it. The struggle is real. And I think the time,
I really do. Struggle is real.
I get it. I really do. I've been answering a lot of customer care questions on that. But I think what we've landed on is the fairest to, the bulk of our attendees. So 11 a.m. Eastern to 7 p.m. day 1, 11 to 7:38 on day 2, and 11 to 5 on day 3.
Absolutely. So with that, I'm going to say this. I hope you all join us for the virtual event on virtual events.
And whether you do or you don't, I hope you do a virtual event. I hope you put ideas into action. You take what we've given you and you apply it to your first or your next live event. And keep in mind, 80% of this is the same. This is awesome because live events are not dead. They're alive and well. And there's an amazing opportunity for you right at your fingertips to stay connected to your audiences, to lead them through difficult times, to give them content, connection, and community. And trust me, they will love you, reward you, and respect you for that, and be clients for years to come. And I'll just say too, I think the pendulum has swung back and forth a number of times in my career. 9/11 and 2008. Anytime we have a recession, the hospitality industry is the first one to be hit. But we have never seen the pendulum swing this far out of balance. And I don't think it's ever coming back to where it was before. When it swings that far out, I think it's just, there's going to be a new normal. It's an overused term, but I think it's overused because it's true. We're headed to a new normal. We don't know what it looks like yet. So arming yourself with all the tips and tools that you need to stay in front of this and to be able to pivot, whether you want to do in person or do virtual, to have all the knowledge base that you need to be able to capably do both and have your own purpose-driven payday is the very reason we wanted to put on the virtual event for virtual events and why we're sprinting to put this on for you in the midst of doing all these virtual events for our clients. I mean, it is intense right now, but I also think it's really important work. We want to provide you with leadership and content and connection and community so that you can help lead the way out of this dark space and this dark place. It's an unprecedented time. There's unprecedented challenges. There's an unprecedented opportunity for you to serve your people and do the work that you're meant to do so that they can do the work they're meant to do. So this is our unprecedented offer. You'll never see anything like this again, not for $97. But I think it's the right thing to do at the right time to do it. So
I think so too. And like Barry said, your audience is there. They're waiting for you. They need you now more than ever. Virtual events are an amazing way to get your knowledge, your message out there in a big way. Allow you to make a splash, not just locally, but globally, and really broaden your reach in a way that you never could have done before. We joked about it at the beginning of today's stream, where we've gotten some negative comments on some of our posts that people have said, of course, virtual events are outperforming live events. There's no live events going on. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. Thanks, keyboard warrior. And listen, right now there are no other options. Absolutely. And we had to figure something out. And we did. And now we're sharing it with you because here's the deal. Necessity is the mother of invention. And I'm not saying we invented the virtual event, but I do think we've perfected it. And I hope that you join us for these 3 days, May 29th through the 31st. They're 3 full days. They're going to be action-packed. It's going to be awesome. And let us share with you what we've learned that has made a tremendous difference in our clients' bottom line when it comes to their live events that they couldn't host anymore. And let us help you get your first or your next live events on the books, done by the end of June, ready to go. Have an amazing time, make an incredible impact, have a purpose-driven payday.
Meet other people like you doing the exact same thing. If nothing else, if you don't remember anything else from tonight's broadcast, we want you to remember, you can do this.
You can do this. We'll see you soon.